The year is 1683. Across the plains of Hungary, the earth trembles beneath the weight of empire. 150,000 men marched west, an army so vast it takes 3 hours for its columns to pass a single point. The crescent banners of the Ottoman Sultan blot out the summer sky. Leading them is Grand Vizier Mustafa Pasha, commander of the most feared army on earth. He has carved a bloody path through the Balkans, leaving conquered cities smoking in his wake. Now he turns his gaze toward Vienna, the golden apple of Europe. If Vienna falls, the road to Germany lies open. If Vienna falls, Italy trembles. If Vienna falls, the fractured kingdoms of Christendom collapse like dominoes. The Sultan has promised Mustafa a golden apple, the ancient symbol of world dominion. If he delivers this final jewel, Europe knows what is coming. Yet Europe does nothing. The Holy Roman Empire is weak, divided by politics and pride. Its emperor has already fled Vienna. France watches from the shadows, unwilling to help its rival Austria. The Italian states bicker among themselves. Protestant and Catholic still nurse wounds from wars that tore the continent apart. The great powers see only their own interests. None see the abyss opening beneath their feet. Only one man believes the darkness can be stopped: King Jan III Sobieski of Poland. He is 60 years old, a warrior since youth, a veteran of 30 battles against Turk and Tatar alike. A man of faith so deep, it terrifies those who do not share it. Where others see despair, he sees duty. Where others see impossible odds, he sees the hand of Providence calling him to stand. His kingdom is exhausted, his treasury empty, his army numbers only a few thousand. But his faith burns brighter than the sun over the Carpathian Mountains. He sends word to Vienna: "Hold, I am coming." He does not ask permission. He does not wait for promises of payment. He simply gathers every man who can ride and begins the longest forced march in Polish history. Because Jan Sobieski understands that some moments transcend calculation, that when civilization stands at the precipice, good men do not count the cost. They pay it. By mid-July, the Ottoman host surrounds Vienna, 150,000 against 15,000 defenders. The walls are old, built before gunpowder could shatter stone. The garrison is small, commanded by Count Ernst Rudiger on Starrenberg, a man of iron will who knows they cannot win. Yet he refuses to surrender. The siege engines begin their work. Day and night the cannons roar. Ottoman miners dig beneath the walls, collapsing bastions in eruptions of fire and smoke. The defenders fight for every yard of wall, every hour of daylight. Inside the city, time becomes measured in heartbeats and prayers. Mustafa sits in his silk pavilion, dining on lamb and honey. While Vienna starves, he builds a city of tents so vast it takes an hour to walk from end to end. He invites foreign ambassadors to watch the siege as theater. He is patient. He has already won. Time and hunger are his allies. His officers urge a direct assault, but Mustafa refuses. Why sacrifice men when starvation will do the work? He does not look north. He does not imagine anyone would be foolish enough to challenge him. All of Europe watched the horizon burn and believed Vienna would fall. The question was not if, only when. The city is dying by inches. Smoke hangs over Vienna like a funeral shroud. The streets are silent, except for distant cannon fire and the screams of the wounded. Food runs low, then lower, then nearly gone. People boil leather belts to make soup. Rats become delicacies. The very old and very young die first, not from Ottoman steel, but from hunger. Water runs even lower. Disease spreads, dysentery, fever, wounds that will not heal. Yet still they fight. Civilians dig trenches beside soldiers. Old men stand watch on the walls. Young boys carry stones to repair breaches. Women load muskets with steady hands. Every morning, Count Starberg climbs the ramparts and counts the breaches. Every morning, there are more. The Ottomans have blown 3 massive holes in the outer defenses. The defenders are down to 4,000 fighting men. They have held for 2 months. They cannot hold much longer. Starbenberg writes in his journal, "We are living ghosts defending a tomb, yet we will not yield." Outside the walls, Kha Mustafa grows more arrogant. Merchants set up bazaars between the tents. Musicians play in the evenings. He has already divided Vienna's wealth in his mind. But something shifts in the north. Far beyond the Ottoman lines, an army gathers. It is pitifully small by the standards of empires, but it moves with purpose. King Jan Sobieski has called every ally who will answer. Duke Charles of Lorraine with 20,000 Austrian and German troops. The southern German princes contribute a few thousand more. And from Poland, across 500 miles of mountain and storm, Soye leads his winged hussars south. 3,000 Polish cavalry, the finest heavy cavalry Europe has ever produced. Knights armored in steel that costs more than a peasant will earn in 10 lifetimes. They are not enough. Even joined with the imperial forces, they will field barely 27,000 men against 80,000 Ottomans. The numbers are madness, suicide dressed in military planning. Soye does not care about numbers, he cares about duty. He writes to his beloved wife, "I go to save Vienna. If I perish there, remember me to our children, and tell them their father died doing what God demanded." Inside the city, as August bleeds into September, despair settles like frost. The walls crumble faster than they can be repaired. The powder stores are nearly empty. The Ottoman mines are nearly complete. Starberg sends his last messenger through enemy lines on the night of September 9th with a simple message. "Come now, or do not come at all. We have days, perhaps hours." On the night of September 10th, a rumor spreads through Vienna like wildfire. A century swears he saw signal fires on the distant hills. Another claims to have heard trumpets echoing from the mountains. The people gather on the walls, straining their eyes toward the north. And there, just before dawn on September 11th, they see it. Banners, thousands of them, cresting the hills of Kahlenberg. The double-headed eagle of the Holy Roman Empire. The white eagle of Poland. The standards of Bavaria, Saxony, Franconia. The relief army has arrived. Inside Vienna, church bells ring for the first time in weeks. People weep openly in the streets. They do not know if this small force can save them, but for the first time in 2 months, they believe they might not die alone. A whisper spreads through every street, every home, every heart. The Polish king is coming. The march south was a prayer written in iron and will. King Jan Sobieski led his men across 500 miles of wilderness, through Carpathian passes where summer storms turned trails into rivers of mud, through forests so thick the sun vanished for days across rivers swollen with rain. They moved faster than any army in history. 40 meters some days, 50 when desperation pushed them. They slept in their saddles. They ate in the saddle, because Vienna was dying and every hour mattered. The hussars rode at the vanguard, those legendary knights who had become myth even while they still lived. warriors clad in armor that gleamed like captured sunlight. Wings of eagle feathers rose from their backs, mounted on wooden frames. Not decoration, but weapons of psychological warfare perfected over generations. The wings made them appear larger than life, and the sound, that eerie whistling roar when 3,000 Hussars rode at full charge, was the last thing countless enemies ever heard. Each Hussar was a lord of war, armored head to foot in plate and mail, carrying an 18-foot lance of hollow wood, light enough to couch under one arm, yet strong enough to punch through a man and his horse together. They were nobility. They owned lands. They had servants and titles and wealth. Any one of them could have stayed home in safety. They rode to Vienna anyway because honor demanded it, because their king called, because some things matter more than survival. They were the last true knights of Europe. At Toulon, the Polish king joined forces with Duke Charles of Lorraine and the imperial army. Poles and Austrians, who had no love for each other, now stood shoulder to shoulder. Catholic and Protestant soldiers, who should have been enemies, recognized each other as brothers. Because Vienna was dying, and if Vienna fell, they would all die in turn. Faith and survival bound them. Old hatreds dissolved. Nothing else mattered except the charge they knew was coming. On the night of September 11th, the Allied army reached the Vienna woods. They made camp among the trees, no fires, no noise above a whisper. At dawn on September 12th, the commanders climbed to the summit of Kahlenberg. What they saw below stole the breath from their lungs. The Ottoman camp stretched for miles, 80,000 men, in perfect formation. Cavalry reserves in the tens of thousands. Artillery parks bristling with bronze cannon. The crescent banners, so numerous they looked like a second sky. Between the mountain and the city lay open ground. Kill zones, watched by Ottoman guns. Even Siesi, who had seen every kind of battlefield, felt the weight of what they faced. 27,000 against 80,000 of the finest soldiers the Ottoman Empire could field. A younger commander might have hesitated, might have waited for better odds, but Yancey's understood something the Ottomans did not. That some moments in history demand sacrifice without calculation. That courage is not the absence of fear, but the refusal to let fear make your choices. That when evil masses at the gates, good men do not ask for better odds. They simply pay the price that virtue demands. He turned to his officers. His voice was calm, carrying the weight of absolute certainty. Gentlemen, we will attack at noon. The Hussars will lead. Make your peace with God. Across the Allied lines, men knelt in prayer. Catholic priests offered blessings. Protestant chaplain led hymns. For one morning, there was no divide between them. They were simply Christians facing the shadow. The Hussars checked their armor one last time, tightened girths, tested lance balance, spoke quietly to their horses. Some wrote final letters home. Others simply closed their eyes and breathed, memorizing the smell of morning air. At 1100 hours, the army began its descent from Kenberg. First, the infantry, engaging the Ottoman skirmishes. Then the German cavalry hammering at the flanks. The Austrians pressed from the south. It was working, but slowly. Too slowly. Vienna could not wait. Inside the city, the defenders were making a final sortie, throwing themselves against the siege lines in one last desperate push. If the cavalry did not break through soon, the city would fall anyway. King Sobieski sat atop his warhorse at the crest of a low ridge. Behind him, 3,000 winged hussars formed into a massive wedge. 3,000 lances lowered as one. 3,000 prayers whispered into the wind. His sons ride beside him, Alexander and James, their faces set with determination. The king raised his saber high, the blade catching sunlight, and the thunder began. At noon, on September the 12th, 1683, the heavens opened. Not with rain, not with lightning, with wings. 3,000 Polish hussars launched from the ridge like a hammer thrown by the hand of God himself. They started at a trot, then a canter, the rhythm building, the ground beginning to shake. The feathered wings on their backs caught the wind and roared, a sound like 1,000 eagles diving at once. And then they charged. 18,000 Allied cavalry followed in their wake. But it was the hussars who led. It was the hussars the enemy saw first, coming down the slope like an avalanche of steel and fury. The largest cavalry charge in human history descended on the Ottoman lines like the wrath of ages. From the walls of Vienna, the defenders watched in stunned silence. They had never seen anything like it. A living avalanche pouring down the slopes in perfect formation. Wings flashing in the afternoon sun like angels descending to judgment. The Ottoman cavalry moved to intercept. Thousands of Sepahi riders, the finest horsemen of the East, veterans of 100 campaigns. They had never faced the winged hussars before. They lasted 4 minutes. The Polish wedge hit the Ottoman line with the force of a collapsing mountain. The impact was audible even from the walls of Vienna. A thunderclap of steel on steel. 18-foot lances shattered against Ottoman cavalry, throwing men from saddles. The hussars did not slow. They punched through the first rank, then the second, then the third. Every lance that shattered, the rider discarded, drew his saber, kept riding, kept killing. Behind them, the Allied cavalry widened the breach. The Ottoman formation began to crack. First, one unit broke and fled, then another. Then, an entire regiment turned to run. Then, it shattered entirely. Panic spread faster than any sword. Ottoman soldiers who had stood firm against sieges turned and ran. Units that had never retreated fled in chaos. The Janissaries, the elite shock troops who had never known defeat, tried to form defensive squares. The hussars rode them down like wheat before a scythe. King Sobieski was everywhere at once. His warhorse covered in blood, his saber red to the hilt, his voice rising above the chaos. His sons beside him, fighting like the princes they were born to be. He led from the front, because that is what kings do when the world is ending. Khan Mustafa watched his army disintegrate from his silk pavilion. The man who had promised his sultan the conquest of Europe stood frozen as the nightmare unfolded. Finally, when the hussars were visible in the distance, he ran. He left behind his treasure, his maps, his personal banner, the golden apple meant for the sultan's hand. All of it abandoned in a mad scramble to escape the fury of the winged hussars. By nightfall, it was over. 80,000 Ottoman soldiers scattered to the winds. 15,000 dead on the field. The rest fleeing south in complete chaos. The greatest army the Sultan had ever assembled. destroyed in a single afternoon by a force 1/3 its size. Vienna was saved. Europe was saved. At sunset, King Jan Sobieski rode through the gates of Vienna. The streets were lined with people weeping, cheering, falling to their knees. Children reached out to touch his horse. Women threw flowers. Men kissed the hooves of the hussar mounts. They looked like ghosts, hollow-eyed from starvation, gaunt from disease, but they were alive. The king dismounted in the cathedral square, covered in dust and blood and exhaustion beyond measure. He knelt before the altar of St. Stephen's Cathedral and spoke the words that would echo through history. Veni vidi Deosvic. I came, I saw, God conquered. Not we conquered, not I conquered, not Poland or Austria or Germany conquered. God conquered. Because Yancey's understood what some men forget in the fever of victory. That courage is a gift from heaven. That strength is borrowed from sources beyond flesh. That when the impossible becomes possible, it is not by human hands alone. The siege was broken. The Ottoman advance was finished forever. Never again would the crescent banners threaten the heart of Europe. The tide of history, which had seemed unstoppable just days before, had turned on one September afternoon. And the sound that turned it was thunder. The thunder of hooves pounding down a mountain. The thunder of wings singing in the wind. The thunder of men who refuse to let darkness win. Against all reason, against all odds, against the mathematics of war and the logic of despair, Europe stood. Because on one September day, the Polish winged rode into legend and carried the weight of civilization on their backs. That day, the thunder of the winged hussars rolled across history. Proof that courage, faith, and unity can turn the tide of the world. Against all reason, against all odds, Europe stood. Because on one September day, the Polish winged rode into legend and carried the weight of civilization on their backs. That day, the thunder of the winged hussars rolled across history. Proof that courage, faith, and unity can turn the tide of the world.